Welcome to Serenity Rising, Healing with Cancer. I'm Bron and I want to welcome you to not just a podcast, but to a community, a new way of seeing, feeling and walking through the chaos of cancer. Welcome back to Serenity Rising. It's Bron here. Today we're doing one of my favourite episode styles. It's our Q&A format. If you've been here before, you know how I love these because they let me respond directly to what's real for you right now. And here's the thing about this space. It's full of questions. Questions about how to cope, how to rest, how to keep going, how to feel less alone. I see them everywhere in the support groups, in the comments, in the messages. So many of us are carrying the same wonderings, but thinking we're the only ones thinking it. Today, I'm responding to 3 questions that have come up online recently. These are not hypothetical. These are raw. They are honest words of people walking this path. And I've done my homework on the research too, because I think you deserve answers that are grounded in what actually works, not just what sounds good. See, if you're listening and you're in this place, or you love someone who is, I hope this feels like a conversation with a friend who gets it. So let's begin. First question comes from David. Yes, I may be strong, but I feel so alone in my thoughts today. I'm tired of hearing phrases like, you can do this, quality of life, one day at a time, this is temporary. You will get over this hurdle. Life has changed. I feel so helpless in what I can do to be of value to others rather than to be a burden. Is it best to pretend and say to others, yay, I'm okay, when clearly I'm struggling with my thoughts alone inside my head? David, I want you to know I sat with your words for a long time before responding because I felt them. That exhaustion you're describing, it's real. And it's not because you're ungrateful or negative. It's because you're a human being who deserves to be truly seen, not just cheered at. And I'm going to share something with you. When I was going through treatment, I remember wanting to scream. Everyone said to me, you've got this. I know they meant well, but it felt like they were putting a lid on something I desperately needed to get out. Like I had to perform wellness for them. So they could feel better about my situation. Here's what I've learned, and the research backs this up as well. Those well-meaning comments often fail because they skip the validation. They jump straight to the fix it or stay positive without first acknowledging that what you're going through is genuinely hard. Brené Brown calls this the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy says at least and tries to silver line things, especially your pain, whereas empathy says, I hear you and this is hard. And you know what else? That pressure to stay positive all the time, researchers literally call it toxic positivity. It causes emotional suppression, and here's the kicker. It makes people feel more isolated, not less. So when those platitudes make you want to pull your hair out, and that's not you being difficult, that's you recognizing that your experience deserves more than a bumper sticker of you've got this. Now let's talk about feeling alone, David. About 1/3 of cancer survivors report feeling significantly lonely, but here's something important. You can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone with those people because they can't truly meet you where you are. Shetty actually talks about this. He says there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the lens that makes you feel disconnected even in a crowd. It's not about how many people are around. It's about whether anyone really sees you. And that question you asked about whether you're a burden, David, I need you to hear this. That feeling is incredibly common, and research shows it's almost never how other people actually see us. Your value doesn't diminish because you're struggling. In fact, research has found something profound. Connection doesn't come from having it all together. It comes from being seen, from letting people in on the mess. That's what actually creates belonging. So no, I don't think you should pretend to be okay. Not with everyone, maybe. That's exhausting. But you need at least one person, one space where you can be honest, where you can say, today is awful, and you have someone just sit with you without trying to fix a thing. No cheerleaders required. So something today you can try. It's called the One Safe Person text. Think of one person in your life who might be able to hold space without trying to fix everything. send them a message that says something like, I'm having a hard day. I don't need advice or positivity. I just need someone to know. And that's it. You don't have to explain anymore. Sometimes just naming it to one person cracks open the loneliness more than we can expect. So another thing you can try is the honest check-in. When someone asks you, how are you? You don't want to perform, but also you don't want to dump everything. So why don't we try, today's a hard one, but I'm here. It's honest, it's not performing, and it gives the other person a chance to step closer if they're able to. If there's one thing I would suggest, is stop saying you're fine. You're allowed to be honest about being in a hard season in your life. Now, the second question's from Michelle. I'm so scared almost all of the time. I'm not old and I want to live a long life. I want to have 100 more Christmases. I don't want to live in the real world. I want to wake up with my family and go on a holiday and have the most amazing family time. But it's real life and we just can't do that every day. I know I need to be positive, but today is so hard and I just don't know why. I just want to live. Michelle, when I read your words, I felt my heart reach out to you because I know that deep, soulful wish. I just want to live. That comes from somewhere so deep it feels like it might break. That's not weakness talking. That's love. Love of your family, your life, your future. Can I tell you something? You're not failing at being positive. You're being completely, beautifully human. Around 80% of people facing serious illness experience these exact distressing thoughts about death. You're not alone in this fear, even though it feels like you are. And you said something that I want to gently push back on. You said, I know I need to be positive. Now, Michelle, who told you that? Because here's what I've learned. Forced positivity doesn't work. In fact, it often makes things worse when we try to shove down that fear. It doesn't go away. It just finds other ways to leak out. Now, Mel Robbins has this brilliant insight about fear. She says fear and excitement are actually the same physical sensation in your body. Your heart races, your stomach flips, your palms sweat. The only difference is what your brain tells you about it. I'm not saying you should try to convince yourself that terror about mortality is actually excitement. Hell no. But what I am going to say is this. Those sensations you're feeling, they're your body responding to something that matters deeply. That's not broken. That's human. Here's what the research has found helps most. Not eliminating the fear, but finding meaning alongside it. There's this approach called meaning-centered psychotherapy that was developed specifically for people in your situation. And what it teaches is this. Meaning doesn't have to wait until the fear goes away. Meaning exists in the holidays and in the ordinary Tuesdays. You can learn more about that in episode 7 on Serenity Rising. Now, Shetty does share something that's helped me so much. You want to go on a journey with someone, not make them your journey. Michelle, your family isn't just the reason to live. They're your companions on a journey that has meaning right now, today, whatever today looks like. You don't have to live every day on holiday to live meaningfully. And Michelle, it's okay that today is hard and you don't know why. Some days are just like that. You don't need a reason. You don't need to fix it. You just need to be gentle with yourself and let the hard days be hard. So there is something you can try in these moments. There's a couple actually. The 3 good things. So tonight before you go to bed, write down or say out loud 3 moments from today that held meaning. That can be really tiny. The coffee that tasted good, the sound of someone you love laughing, the warmth of the sun through the window. This isn't toxic positivity, I promise. It's not pretending the fear doesn't exist. It's training your brain to notice that meaning exists alongside the fear, because both can be true. Another thing to try is the 5 senses anchor. Now, this thing has been around for a long time. When fear starts spiraling, try this. When the fear gets loud, stop and name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste. It brings you back into your body in this moment, into the present where you are alive and breathing, because fear lives in the future. This moment right now, you're still here. And our last question for this episode is from Karen. What I haven't learned to do yet is embrace doing nothing. With this disease, I have learned to slow down considerably, yet when I'm exhausted and I have to take a few really slow days, I feel guilty for it. How do I get over that? Karen, this question is so personal to me that I had to take a breath before answering it. Because I was you, Karen. I'll tell you a story. At the end of 2017, so this is after the mastectomy, I'd started chemotherapy and I'd actually had my second dose of chemotherapy. I was bald and it was 4 hours after the second dose, might I add. I was doing a Facebook Live for my clients. So I was running my business and I had this belief that I had to deliver what I said I was going to deliver. And I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and I couldn't believe what I saw. And I looked at myself and I said, do you want to die? Because if you keep this up, you're going to die. And I changed that business overnight because I realized in that moment that my worth was tied up in my productivity, that rest was for lazy people, that pushing through was what was meant to happen because that's what people do, right? Until my body said no, until I physically and emotionally could not keep it up anymore. And even then, when I had no choice but to rest, I felt guilty about it. So Karen, when you ask, how do I get over that? I want you to know I get it. I acknowledge you. This isn't just about cancer. This is about a whole culture that's been teaching us since we were kids that our value comes from what we produce or what we do. Exhaustion has become a status symbol. We brag about how little sleep we have, or we wear our busyness like a badge of honor. When we tie our self-worth to productivity, we lose the ability to pump the brakes. Rest feels like failure instead of necessity. But here's what I need you to understand, Karen. The guilt you're feeling, it might not even be guilt. Research on cancer patients have found that what often looks like guilt is actually grief in disguise. You're grieving the body you used to have, the life where you could just do whatever you wanted, the pace you could keep, the role of being the reliable one who pushes through no matter what. That's not laziness. That's an identity loss, and it deserves compassion, not criticism. So let me reframe something for you. You said you feel guilty for doing nothing. But Karen, you're not doing nothing. You're healing. Rest isn't the absence of effort. Rest is the effort. The clinical guidelines on cancer fatigue are really clear about this. Cancer-related exhaustion is fundamentally different from normal tiredness. It's not proportional to activity. It doesn't get better just because you push through. When your body says rest, it's telling you something essential about your treatment and your recovery. When you lie down on those slow days, you're not being lazy. You're participating in your care. Your immune system is regulating. Your body is recovering from treatment. This cannot be willed into existence by working harder. It can only happen when you stop. Brené Brown also says something that stopped me in my tracks. What a lot of us do is stay so busy and so out in front of our life that the truth of how we're feeling can't catch up with us. Maybe the guilt is actually your body's way of saying, sit with this, feel this. You've been running for a long time. And here's the thing about self-compassion. It's not self-indulgent. The research is really solid on this. People who are gentler with themselves during treatment and even beyond have less anxiety, less depression, and less fatigue. Self-compassion is treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend in your situation. Would you tell a friend fighting this disease that they should feel guilty for resting? Of course not. The same standard applies to you, something you can try today. So here's a couple of things you can try. Now, the first one's, it's a bit quirky, but stick with me here. Write yourself an actual prescription for rest. On a piece of paper, write, prescribed, rest as needed. Reason, active participation in healing. Duration, as long as required. Signed, me. Stick it somewhere, you'll see it. When that guilt voice pipes up, you have your prescription because you're following your orders. And another thing you can try is what we call the reframe mantra. Every time you catch yourself thinking, I'm doing nothing, I want you to interrupt that thought out loud if you need to and say, I'm not doing nothing, I'm healing. Rest is how my body recovers. Research talks about how we can actually rewire our brains by interrupting negative thought patterns. It feels awkward. I do anyway. But do it anyway. You're literally building new neural pathways. You're teaching yourself a different story about what rest means. So David, Michelle, Karen, and all our listeners who see themselves in these questions, I thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to voice what so many feel but don't say out loud. And what I hope you take away from today is this: you are not failing. Your exhaustion with platitudes, it's valid. Your fear of what's ahead, totally understandable. Your guilt about needing rest, it's not a character flaw, it's a culture that taught you wrong. Brené Brown reminds us that we are imperfect, wired for struggle, but worthy of love and belonging. You don't have to earn your worthiness by pushing through. You already have it. You've always had it. Being alone is not a weakness. It's a strength. That solitude, chosen and peaceful, can be a place of power. You get to choose what lens you look life through. And don't forget, we're never going to feel like doing all the hard things, the vulnerable things, the necessary things, but we can do them anyway, one serenity moment at a time. And as I said in our last episode, you don't need to hustle harder to matter more. You're allowed to build a life that fits you. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to shift. You're allowed to rebuild again and again and again. That applies to cancer treatment. That applies to fear. That applies to rest. It actually applies to everything. So until next time, everyone, please make every day count. It's Bron here, and you've been listening to Serenity Rising. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great having you here. And what I would love you to do is leave a comment or ask a question using my fan link below this episode and on every episode that we post. I would love to hear your thoughts, your questions, and I'll get back to you. Have a great day and bye for now.